Weeks passed on the colony world, and life slowly began to settle into a fragile rhythm. The survivors of the stellar horizon found themselves welcomed by the colonists, who offered food, shelter, and medical care. Though grateful for their kindness, Ethan and his crew carried the scars of their ordeal, both visible and invisible. Gruck's sacrifice weighed heavily on all of them, as did the loss of Zara and Olivia. Their absence was a constant reminder of the price they had paid to protect Ryan and the dangerous secret he carried. Ryan, too, struggled with the weight of responsibility. He spent long hours alone, staring out at the barren landscape or poring over fragments of data from his neural implant. The information was incomplete, damaged during the battle, but it still hinted at the existence of the mysterious AI buried beneath the uncharted planet. Its purpose and its potential remained shrouded in mystery. Despite his guilt, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that uncovering the truth was vital, not just for himself, but for everyone. One evening, Ethan called a meeting with the surviving crew in a small communal room provided by the colonists. The air was warm, lit only by a single overhead light that cast soft shadows across the walls. "We've been here long enough," Ethan began, his voice steady but tinged with urgency. "It's time to decide what comes next." Jorv floated near the corner, his tentacles twitching slightly as he listened. "The colony is safe, but we can't stay forever," he said softly. "If others find us here, others like Cal, we'll be putting these people in danger." Ethan nodded. "Exactly. We need to move forward. But first, we need to figure out what to do about the implant. And the eye." Ryan looked up, his face pale but determined. "I've been thinking about that," he admitted. "The implant contains partial coordinates to the planet. Even if someone else finds it, they won't have everything they need to locate the eye. But," he hesitated, glancing at Ethan, "if we destroy it now, we lose any chance of understanding what it is or how to stop it if it wakes up." The room fell silent as the others absorbed his words. Finally, Ethan spoke. "Then we don't destroy it. Not yet. But we keep it hidden, and we prepare for whatever happens next." The decision brought a mix of relief and unease. They knew the path ahead would be fraught with danger, but staying idle felt worse. Over the following days, the crew worked together to repair an old scout ship owned by the colonists, retrofitting it for space travel. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get them moving again. As they prepared to leave, the colonists gathered to see them off. The middle-aged woman who had greeted them upon arrival stepped forward, her eyes filled with quiet admiration. "You've already done so much," she said. "Be careful out there." "We will," Ethan replied, offering her a small, grateful smile. Turning to his crew, he added, "Let's go." The journey ahead was uncertain, but there was a sense of purpose among them, a shared determination to honor those they had lost. As the scout ship lifted off, Ryan watched the colony shrink into the distance, his mind racing. Whatever lay ahead, whether answers or more questions, they would face it together. And though the stars seemed vast and cold, they also held the promise of hope. For now, that was enough. The escape pod drifted silently through the vast emptiness of space, its small engines humming softly as it carried the survivors toward the distant colony world. Inside, the mood was somber. The weight of their losses hung heavy in the air, and no one spoke for a long time. Ethan sat near the viewport, his eyes fixed on the stars outside, though his mind was elsewhere. He replayed the events of the past hours over and over, each memory sharp and painful. Gruck's sacrifice, Zara's bravery, Olivia's final words. They had given everything to ensure the crew's survival, and to stop Kale and his pirates from claiming the dangerous secret hidden in Ryan's implant. Ryan sat across from him, his face pale and drawn. His hands trembled slightly as he stared at the floor, unable to meet anyone's gaze. "I should have stayed behind," he muttered finally, his voice barely audible. "If I hadn't come aboard, none of this would have happened." Ethan turned to look at him, his expression hard but not unkind. "Stop that," he said firmly. Blaming yourself won't bring them back. What's done is done. Now we focus on what comes next. Ryan nodded slowly, though doubt lingered in his eyes. What asterisk does asterisk come next? He asked quietly. The pirates are gone. But the code, it's still inside me. What if someone else finds out? What if they try to take it? We'll figure it out, Ethan replied, his tone steady. For now, we find a safe place to regroup. Once we're on solid ground, we'll decide how to handle the implant. But you're not alone in this. We'll protect you. The others murmured their agreement, though exhaustion was etched into every face. Jorv floated near the control panel, his tentacles twitching as he monitored their trajectory. We're approaching the colony, he announced, his voice soft but clear. Estimated arrival in 3 hours. A faint sense of relief passed through the group. The colony, though far from home, offered a chance to rest and recover. For the first time since the battle began, hope flickered weakly in their hearts. As the hours passed, Ryan grew quieter, lost in thought. He glanced occasionally at Ethan, as if wanting to say something but unsure how to begin. Finally, just as the colony came into view, a cluster of domed structures surrounded by barren terrain, he spoke up. There's something I haven't told you, he admitted, his voice low but urgent. About the AI. It's not just ancient. It's alive, or at least it was. My team thought it might still be dormant, waiting for activation. If the pirates had gotten the coordinates. He trailed off, his words hanging heavily in the silence. Ethan studied him carefully, his jaw tightening. You're saying it could wake up? He asked. Ryan nodded. And if it does, I don't know what happens next. That's why I wanted the implant destroyed. Even now, I'm not sure keeping it intact is the right choice. Before Ethan could respond, the escape pod shuddered slightly as it entered the colony's atmosphere. The descent was smooth, and moments later, they touched down on a landing pad near the main dome. The hatch opened with a hiss, revealing a group of colonists who had gathered to greet them. Their faces were curious but wary, unsure what to make of the battered survivors. Ethan stepped out first, raising a hand in greeting. We need shelter, he said simply, and medical supplies. Our ship was destroyed. One of the colonists, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, nodded. Of course. Follow me. As the group made their way into the dome, Ethan glanced back at Ryan, who stood hesitantly near the pod. Come on, he said gently. We're safe for now. Let's focus on getting everyone settled. Ryan hesitated, then followed, his steps slow but steady. Though the immediate danger had passed, the road ahead was uncertain. But for the first time in days, there was a glimmer of peace and the promise of a new beginning. Ethan and the remaining crew moved quickly through the narrow corridors of the stellar horizon, their footsteps echoing against the walls. The countdown timer blared in the background, each announcement a stark reminder of how little time they had left. 9 minutes until detonation. The automated voice intoned, cold and emotionless. Ryan stumbled as they ran, his legs weak from exhaustion and fear. Ethan grabbed him by the arm, pulling him forward. Keep moving, he urged, his voice firm but not unkind. We're almost there. Behind them, the pirates regrouped, their shouts growing louder as they realized what was happening. Kale, their leader, barked orders in a guttural language, his tone furious. He knew the humans were trying to destroy the ship, and with it, any chance of retrieving the code embedded in Ryan's implant. Stop them, he roared, his voice carrying through the halls. If that ship blows, we lose everything. The crew reached the bridge just moments before the pirates closed in. Ethan turned to face the others, his expression grim. Jorv, prep the escape pods. Gruck, cover the door. We're not letting them through. His eyes scanned the group, lingering briefly on Ryan. This ends now. Jorv floated toward the control panel, his tentacles working swiftly to activate the pods. The first one launched without issue, carrying a small group of crew members to safety. But as the second pod prepared to depart, the pirates broke through, their weapons blazing. Gruck stepped forward, his massive frame blocking the doorway as he swung his makeshift weapon with brute force. 2 pirates fell under his assault, but more poured in, their numbers overwhelming. "Go!" Gruck shouted, his deep voice filled with urgency. "I'll hold them off." "No," Ethan yelled, turning back toward the fight. But Gruck shoved him away, his reptilian eyes fierce with determination. "You're the captain. Get them out of here. That's an order." Ethan hesitated, torn between loyalty and duty. Finally, he nodded, his jaw tightening. "Thank you, Gruck." As Ethan led the others toward the final escape pod, Kale appeared at the far end of the corridor, his armor scorched but his stance unwavering. His weapon aimed directly at Ethan. "You think you can stop me?" He sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're nothing but a coward hiding behind scraps of metal." Ethan didn't respond. Instead, he grabbed a loose piece of debris from the floor and hurled it at Kale, catching the pirate off guard. The distraction gave Ethan enough time to dive into the escape pod, sealing the hatch behind him. "Launch," he shouted, his voice hoarse from the strain of the past hours. The pod shot away from the asterisk, Stellar Horizon asterisk, just as the pirates breached the bridge. Through the small viewport, Ethan watched as the freighter grew smaller in the distance. Flames licked at its hull, and the once sturdy vessel now looked like a dying beast. Then, with a blinding flash, the self-destruct sequence reached its climax. The explosion lit up the void of space, sending shockwaves rippling outward. Cal's enraged scream was cut short as the blast consumed his ship and everyone aboard. For a moment, there was only silence. Inside the escape pod, the surviving crew sat in stunned quiet, their faces pale and their bodies trembling from adrenaline and exhaustion. Ryan leaned against the wall, his head bowed. "It's over," he whispered, though his voice carried no relief, only sorrow. Ethan closed his eyes, his mind heavy with the weight of what they had lost. Gruck, Zara, Olivia, they had all sacrificed themselves to ensure the mission succeeded, and yet their bravery had saved countless lives. Opening his eyes, he looked at the others. "We'll honor them," he said firmly, "by finishing what they started." The pod drifted silently through space, its occupants battered but alive. Ahead, the faint glow of a distant colony world offered a glimmer of hope. The fire in the engine room spread quickly, its hungry flames licking at the walls and equipment. The heat was oppressive, forcing everyone to retreat further into the chamber. Ethan wiped sweat from his brow as he assessed the situation. They had managed to trap most of the pirates on the other side of the sealed door, but the remaining ones were still dangerous, and the fire posed an even greater threat. If it reached the fuel lines or the reactor core, the entire ship would be destroyed. "We need to put out the fire," Olivia shouted over the roar of the flames. Her voice was tight with urgency, her eyes darting between the growing inferno and the trapped crew members. "If we don't, we're all dead anyway." Ethan nodded sharply. "Gruck, grab the extinguishers. Zara, help him. Olivia, stay with Ryan and keep him safe." He turned to face the rest of the crew. "Everyone else, focus on holding off the pirates. We can't let them get past us." As Gruck and Zora worked furiously to contain the blaze, Ethan moved to the front line, standing shoulder to shoulder with his remaining crew. The pirates, though fewer in number, fought with brutal efficiency. Their weapons fired relentlessly, forcing Ethan and his team to take cover behind overturned consoles and damaged machinery. Every shot that hit its mark sent sparks flying, and the air grew thick with smoke. Olivia stayed near Ryan, shielding him as best she could while keeping one hand on her weapon. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. "This isn't over," she said quietly, more to herself than to Ryan. "We're getting out of this." Ryan didn't respond. His face was pale, his eyes fixed on the chaos around them. He knew what was at stake if the pirates succeeded. The code embedded in his implant wasn't just valuable, it was catastrophic. And yet, despite the danger, part of him felt responsible for putting these people in harm's way. "I should have stayed on that derelict ship," he muttered under his breath. "None of this would have happened." "No," Olivia snapped, surprising even herself with the sharpness in her tone. "Don't you dare say that. You didn't ask for this. None of us did. But we're here now, and we're going to finish it together." Her words seemed to steady Ryan, if only slightly. He nodded, gripping his arm tightly as if trying to hold himself together. Meanwhile, Ethan formulated a desperate plan. The engine room was too dangerous to hold for much longer, and reinforcements from the pirate ships could arrive at any moment. "We need to activate the self-destruct sequence," he announced, his voice cutting through the noise. "It's the only way to stop them." The room went silent for a moment as everyone processed what he had said. Self-destruct protocols were a last resort, meant to ensure that no enemy could claim the ship or its secrets. Activating it would mean abandoning the Stellar Horizon and risking their lives in the process. "Are you sure?" Olivia asked, her voice trembling. "There's no coming back from this." "I'm sure," Ethan replied firmly. "But someone will have to stay behind to make sure the sequence isn't aborted remotely. The pirates won't give up easily." Before anyone could volunteer, Olivia stepped forward. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "You need to lead the others to safety. I'll handle the controls." Ethan stared at her, his jaw tightening. "Olivia." "No arguments," she interrupted, her tone leaving no room for debate. "I'm the communications officer. I know the system better than anyone. Besides," she glanced at Ryan, then back at Ethan, "this is bigger than any of us. If they win, it's over for everyone." Ethan hesitated, torn between duty and loyalty. Finally, he nodded, his expression grim. "All right, but you'd better make it out alive. That's an order." Olivia gave him a small, sad smile. "I'll try." With the decision made, Ethan rallied the remaining crew. "Fall back to the escape pods," he ordered. "Move quickly and quietly. We don't have much time." As the group began retreating, Olivia stayed behind, her hands moving swiftly over the control panel. She activated the self-destruct sequence, setting the countdown for 10 minutes. The computerized voice echoed through the ship. "Self-destruct initiated. 10 minutes until detonation." Taking a deep breath, Olivia prepared herself for what came next. She knew the odds of survival were slim, but she also knew it was the right thing to do. For the first time in her life, she felt truly brave. The battle in the engine room was chaos. Blasts of energy ricocheted off walls, and the air was thick with smoke and the acrid smell of burning metal. Ethan fought alongside his crew, his weapon firing steadily as he tried to hold back the advancing pirates. Gruck roared with fury, swinging his makeshift club and knocking 2 pirates off their feet. Zara darted between cover points, her small frame making her a hard target as she returned fire with precise shots. But the pirates were relentless. For every one they knocked down, 2 more seemed to take their place. The odds were against them, and everyone knew it. Olivia stayed close to Ryan, shielding him as best she could while occasionally firing her weapon at the enemy. Her hand shook, but her aim remained steady. "We can't keep this up," she shouted over the noise, her voice strained. "There are too many." Ethan gritted his teeth, his mind racing for a solution. He glanced at the coolant system controls, still spewing freezing gas into the room. The temperature had dropped sharply, and frost was forming on the walls and equipment. It was slowing the pirates, but not enough to turn the tide. Then his eyes landed on Marcus, the ship's engineer, who had been unusually quiet during the fight. Marcus stood near the edge of the room, his face pale and his hands trembling, not from fear, but from guilt. "Marcus," Ethan barked, catching the man's attention. "Get over here and help us." Marcus hesitated, glancing toward the pirates before reluctantly moving closer. But as he did, Ethan noticed something strange. One of the pirates signaled subtly to Marcus, tilting his head toward the control panel. Ethan's stomach sank as realization hit him. "You traitor," he growled, raising his weapon. "You're helping them." The room went silent for a moment as all eyes turned to Marcus. His face flushed red, and he backed away, shaking his head. "I didn't have a choice," he stammered. "They would have killed me if I didn't cooperate. They promised they'd let me go once they got what they wanted." "What do they want?" Ethan demanded, though he already knew the answer. Marcus swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. "Him." He pointed at Ryan. "They want the data in his implant. And they said they'd destroy the ship if I didn't help them." Before anyone could react, Marcus lunged for the control panel, his fingers flying over the keys. Alarms blared even louder as the coolant system began shutting down, cutting off the freezing gas that had been slowing the pirates. At the same time, the lights flickered, plunging the room into near darkness. The pirates took advantage of the confusion, pressing forward with renewed aggression. "Stop him," Ethan shouted, but it was too late. Marcus had disabled the lock on a secondary door, allowing more pirates to pour into the engine room. The crew was quickly overwhelmed, forced to retreat deeper into the chamber. Ryan stepped forward, his face pale but determined. "It's no use," he said loudly, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Let them take me. If you fight anymore, everyone dies." "No," Olivia shouted, grabbing his arm. "We're not giving up." Ryan shook his head, his expression grim. "You don't understand. This isn't just about me. It's about everyone. If they get the code, they'll find the AI. And if they activate it..." He trailed off, his voice heavy with dread. Ethan lowered his weapon slightly, torn between protecting Ryan and saving his crew. Before he could decide, a sudden explosion rocked the room. A blast from one of the pirate weapons struck a nearby fuel line, igniting a fire that spread rapidly. Flames licked at the walls, forcing both sides to scatter. Amid the chaos, Zara made a desperate move. She leaped toward Marcus, tackling him to the ground and knocking him away from the controls. The two struggled briefly before Zara managed to pin him down. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice filled with sorrow. Then, with a quick motion, she activated an emergency override, sealing the secondary door and trapping most of the pirates on the other side. The room fell silent except for the crackling of flames. The remaining pirates were fewer now, and the crew regrouped, breathing heavily but ready to fight again. Ethan looked at Zara, gratitude and grief mingling in his eyes. "Thank you," he said softly. Zara nodded, though tears glistened in her large eyes. "For the crew," she replied simply. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time, they had a chance. The pirates stormed into the stellar horizon with ruthless efficiency, their weapons blazing as they cut through the corridors. Their leader, a towering alien named Kale, moved with an air of cold confidence. His armor gleamed under the dim emergency lights, and his sharp, angular features were twisted into a cruel smile. Behind him, a squad of heavily armed mercenaries followed, their movements precise and deadly. Ethan and his crew fought back fiercely, using whatever tools and weapons they could find. Gruck wielded his makeshift club with brute strength, smashing through pirate shields and sending attackers sprawling. Zara darted between cover points, her small size making her a difficult target as she fired bursts from a stolen blaster pistol. Even Olivia had picked up a weapon, her hands trembling but resolute as she aimed at the invaders. Despite their efforts, the pirates pushed forward, overwhelming the outnumbered crew. Ethan led a desperate retreat toward the engine room, hoping to draw the enemy away from the lower decks where Ryan was hiding. "Fall back," he shouted, firing a few more shots before turning to follow his team. As they reached the engine room, Ethan sealed the door behind them, activating the manual lock. The thick metal barrier wouldn't hold forever, but it would buy them precious time. Inside, the hum of machinery filled the air, and the faint glow of control panels illuminated the space. Ethan turned to face his crew, his expression grim. "We can't let them get past this point," he said firmly. "If they reach Ryan, we've lost." Ryan, who had been brought to the engine room by Olivia earlier, looked pale and shaken. He stood near the far wall, clutching his arm as if trying to shield himself from the chaos. "I'm sorry," he whispered again, his voice barely audible over the distant sound of pounding on the door. "This is all my fault." "No," Ethan snapped, though not unkindly. "It's not your fault. But you need to tell us everything you know. Right now. What exactly does that code in your implant lead to?" Ryan hesitated, his eyes darting nervously toward the sealed door. Finally, he took a deep breath and spoke quickly. "It leads to a planet, a place no one's supposed to know about. It's rich in Ethereum, enough to power entire civilizations. But there's something else there, something ancient, an AI buried deep underground. If activated, it could either save or destroy everything." The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Olivia stared at Ryan, her face pale. "You mean like a superweapon?" "I don't know," Ryan admitted. "That's why the research team I was with was investigating it. We thought we could control it, but the pirates found out. They'll stop at nothing to get their hands on it." Before anyone could respond, the pounding on the door grew louder. Sparks flew as the pirates used cutting torches to breach the lock. Ethan clenched his fists, his mind racing. "All right," he said finally. "Here's the plan. We'll use the coolant system to flood this area. It'll slow them down and give us a chance to regroup." Gruck nodded, already moving toward the controls. "Got it, Captain. But flooding the engine room will risk overheating the core. We won't have much time to fix it." "We'll deal with that later," Ethan replied sharply. "Right now, survival comes first." Moments later, a loud hiss filled the air as coolant gas began pouring into the chamber. The temperature dropped rapidly, fogging up the windows and obscuring vision. On the other side of the door, the pirates cursed and stumbled back, caught off guard by the sudden change. The breach attempt slowed, giving Ethan and his crew a brief reprieve. But Ryan's expression remained troubled. He stepped closer to Ethan, lowering his voice so only he could hear. "There's something else," he admitted. "The neural implant, it's linked to me. If they capture me alive, they can extract the data directly. That's why I told you earlier, if it comes down to it, you need to destroy it. And me." Ethan froze, staring at Ryan in shock. "What are you talking about?" "I'm serious," Ryan insisted, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "If they win, everyone loses. Don't let them take me." Before Ethan could respond, the door burst open with a deafening crash. Pirates poured into the room, their weapons raised. The battle resumed with renewed ferocity, leaving no time for further discussion. The pirate ships moved closer, their engines glowing like fiery eyes in the darkness of space. Ethan stood on the bridge, his mind racing as he weighed their options. The Stellar Horizon was a cargo freighter, not built for combat. Its weapons were outdated, and its shields wouldn't hold up against sustained fire from 3 heavily armed vessels. Still, surrendering wasn't an option, not while Ryan's life hung in the balance. "Ethan, we can't fight them," Olivia said urgently, her voice trembling. She had returned to the bridge after securing Ryan in one of the maintenance bays below. "They'll tear us apart." "We don't have a choice," Ethan replied, his tone firm despite the tension in his shoulders. He turned to Jorv, the squid-like pilot, who floated at the helm with all 8 of his tentacles working the controls. "Jorv, prepare evasive maneuvers. Keep us out of their firing range for as long as possible." "Aye, Captain," Jorv replied, his voice calm but tinged with worry. His large, round eyes never left the view screen as he adjusted the thrusters. Gruck lumbered onto the bridge just moments later, his massive frame filling the doorway. "Shields are at full strength, but they won't last long under heavy fire," he reported gruffly. "We need a plan, or we're dead." Ethan nodded, his sharp gaze scanning the situation. "Zara," He called out to the insectoid navigator, who perched near the sensor console. "Can you find any weak points in their formation?" Zara's wings fluttered nervously as she analyzed the data streaming across her screen. "Their lead ship is larger and slower than the others. If we focus our attacks there, we might create confusion." "Good. Target their engines," Ethan ordered. "If we disable even one of them, it buys us time." Before anyone could act, the pirates opened fire. Bright beams of energy streaked through space, slamming into the stellar horizon's shields with devastating force. The entire ship shuddered violently, throwing several crew members off balance. Alarms blared louder now, and sparks flew from overloaded consoles. "Shields down to 60%. Gruck barked, his claws gripping the edge of his station. "Hold steady," Ethan shouted over the chaos. He turned back to Jorv. "Now." With practiced precision, Jorv swung the ship into a tight spiral, narrowly avoiding another volley of shots. The maneuver caught the pirates off guard, giving Zara enough time to lock onto the lead ship's engines. A burst of plasma erupted from the stellar horizon's cannons, striking true and disabling one of the larger vessel's thrusters. The pirate ship listed to one side, smoke billowing from its damaged hull. "They're angry now," Zara warned, her antennae twitching as she monitored enemy communications. "They're preparing boarding parties." Ethan cursed under his breath. Boarding actions were exactly what he'd hoped to avoid. Hand-to-hand combat against seasoned pirates would be brutal, especially since his crew wasn't trained for such battles. "Seal off all access points," he commanded, "and arm yourselves. We're going to make them work for every inch." As the crew scrambled to prepare defenses, Ethan made his way to the lower decks where Ryan was hiding. When he arrived, Ryan looked up, his face pale with fear. "It's my fault," he whispered. "I shouldn't have come aboard." "This isn't your fault," Ethan said firmly, though his own doubts lingered. "But I need answers, and I need them now. What do those pirates want from you?" Ryan hesitated, then reached up to touch the side of his head. "There's a code embedded in my implant. It leads to something ancient, something powerful. If they get it, they'll use it to control entire star systems." Ethan stared at him, his mind racing. Whatever this ancient thing was, it clearly posed a threat far greater than any of them had anticipated. "All right," he said finally. "We'll protect you. But if there's anything else you're not telling me—" "I swear, that's everything," Ryan interrupted, his voice desperate. "Just don't let them take me." Ethan nodded grimly and headed back to the bridge. By the time he returned, the pirates had latched onto the hull with magnetic clamps, cutting through the outer layers of the ship. Metal groaned as breaches formed, and the sound of boots echoed through the corridors. The battle was no longer confined to space. It had come aboard. "Here they come," Gruck growled, raising a makeshift weapon fashioned from a piece of piping. His reptilian eyes gleamed with determination. Ethan drew his sidearm, gripping it tightly. "Stay sharp, everyone. This is going to get ugly." Back aboard the stellar horizon, Ryan was given a small cabin to rest while the crew debated what to do next. Ethan gathered his senior staff in the ship's briefing room, a cramped space filled with mismatched chairs and a flickering holographic display table. The mood was tense, and voices were low but urgent. "We don't know anything about him," Gruck growled, his deep voice reverberating through the room. "He says he's running from pirates, but how do we know he's not working with them? This could all be a trap." Olivia sat at the edge of her seat, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "He looked scared, Gruck. Not like someone trying to fool us. And he's human, like us. Doesn't that count for something?" "It counts for nothing if it gets us killed," Gruck shot back, slamming a clawed hand onto the table for emphasis. Zara flinched slightly but said nothing, her large eyes darting between the two as if watching a match. Ethan leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. His face was calm, but there was a sharpness in his gaze that silenced the room. "We're not throwing him out an airlock," he said firmly. "But we also can't ignore the risks. Olivia, I want you to keep an eye on him. Try to get more information without pressuring him too much. Gruck, check the sensors for any unusual activity near the derelict ship. If pirates are involved, they might still be close." The meeting ended shortly after, leaving each member with their tasks. As the others dispersed, Ethan lingered in the briefing room, staring at the holographic map of nearby space. Something about Ryan's story didn't sit right. Pirates attacking a research team wasn't unheard of, but why target one person specifically? And what exactly was so valuable inside his implant? Meanwhile, Olivia visited Ryan in his cabin. She knocked lightly before entering, finding him sitting on the edge of the bed with his head in his hands. He looked up when she entered, offering a weak smile. "Hey," he said softly. "Thanks again for saving me." "No problem," Olivia replied, taking a seat across from him. She tried to sound casual, though her mind raced with questions. "How are you holding up?" Ryan shrugged, looking down at his feet. "As good as can be expected, I guess. It's just hard to believe I'm safe after everything that happened." His voice trailed off, and he shuddered visibly. Olivia hesitated before speaking. "Ryan, you mentioned your implant earlier. You said it's dangerous. Can you tell me more about it?" Ryan froze, his body stiffening. For a moment, he seemed to wrestle with himself, torn between trust and fear. Finally, he let out a long breath. "I can't explain everything. Not yet. But I will say this. It contains information. Important information. If the wrong people get their hands on it, it could mean disaster for entire systems." "What kind of information?" Olivia pressed gently. Ryan shook his head. "I'm sorry. I can't say more. Just know that I'm not lying when I say my life depends on keeping it hidden." Before Olivia could respond, the ship suddenly rocked violently, throwing her off balance. Alarms blared throughout the corridors, red lights flashing urgently. Ryan's face went pale. "They're here," he whispered. Ethan's voice crackled over the intercom. "All hands to stations. We have incoming vessels closing fast." Olivia grabbed Ryan's arm and pulled him to his feet. "Come on. We need to get you somewhere secure." Ryan nodded numbly, allowing her to lead him toward the lower decks. On the bridge, Ethan stared at the view screen in disbelief. 3 sleek, menacing ships had emerged from hyperspace, their weapons already charging. They bore the unmistakable markings of space pirates, black hulls adorned with jagged crimson designs. At the center of the formation loomed a larger vessel, its size dwarfing the others. Through the comm channel came a cold, arrogant voice. "Attention! Stellar Horizon *. Surrender the human on board, and we may let you live. Resist, and you'll regret it." Ethan clenched his fists, his jaw tightening. Whatever secrets Ryan carried, they were about to become very expensive. The airlock hissed open, and the away team stepped cautiously onto the derelict ship. Ethan led the group, his hand resting on the grip of his sidearm. Behind him followed Olivia, her face pale but determined, and Gruck, who carried a heavy scanner in one massive clawed hand. Zara brought up the rear, her wings folded tightly against her back to avoid brushing against the narrow walls. The interior of the ship was dark, lit only by the faint glow of emergency lights that flickered erratically. The smell of burnt metal and something acrid hung heavily in the air. "This place feels wrong," Zara whispered, her voice soft but carrying an edge of unease. Her antennae twitched as if sensing something unseen. "Stay focused," Ethan replied, though his own instincts were screaming at him to turn back. He motioned for Gruck to scan ahead while he kept watch. Every step echoed unnaturally loud in the silence, making it hard to shake the feeling that they were being watched. As they moved deeper into the ship, signs of chaos became more apparent. Scorch marks marred the walls, and pieces of equipment lay scattered across the floor. In one corridor, they found what looked like dried blood smeared along the bulkhead. Olivia stopped to examine it, her expression grim. "This isn't old," she said quietly. Whatever happened here, it wasn't long ago. Ethan nodded, but didn't respond. Instead, he signaled for the team to keep moving. They eventually reached what appeared to be a makeshift barricade, a pile of crates and debris blocking the doorway. Someone had clearly been trying to protect themselves from something or someone. Ethan gestured for Gruck to clear the path, and with a few powerful swipes of his claws, the engineer dismantled the barrier. Inside, they found him. A young man, no older than his mid-20s, sat huddled in the corner, his clothes torn and his face streaked with dirt and sweat. His eyes widened in panic when he saw them, and he scrambled backward until his back hit the wall. "Don't hurt me," he cried, raising his hands defensively. "It's okay," Ethan said quickly, lowering his weapon slightly to show he meant no harm. "We're not here to hurt you. We picked up your distress signal." The man blinked, then let out a shaky breath. "You're human," he said, his voice trembling with relief. "I didn't think anyone would come." Olivia knelt beside him, speaking gently. "What's your name?" "Ryan," he answered after a moment. "I was part of a research team. We were attacked by pirates." His words came out in a rush, as if saying them quickly might make them easier to bear. "They killed everyone else. I barely escaped." Before anyone could ask more questions, Ryan grabbed Ethan's arm with surprising strength. "You have to leave. Now. Before they come back." "Who are they?" Ethan asked sharply. "And why are they after you?" Ryan hesitated, glancing nervously toward the door, as if expecting attackers to burst through at any moment. Finally, he spoke in a low, urgent tone. "Because of this." He tapped the side of his head. "They want what's inside my implant. If they get it, they'll destroy everything." Gruck growled softly, his deep voice rumbling like distant thunder. "What kind of implant? What does it do?" Ryan shook his head. "I can't explain right now. All I can tell you is that it's dangerous, not just for me, but for everyone. Please, you need to take me somewhere safe." Ethan exchanged a glance with Olivia, who looked uncertain. Trusting a stranger in such a situation was risky, but leaving him behind felt even worse. "All right," Ethan said finally. "We'll bring you aboard the Stellar Horizon *. But understand this. If you're lying to us, there won't be a second chance." Ryan nodded fervently. "Thank you. You won't regret it." As they made their way back to the airlock, none of them noticed the faint blinking light embedded in the wall near where they'd found Ryan, nor did they hear the faint hum of a transmitter activating, sending the signal far into the void. Somewhere out there, someone, or something, was listening. And soon they would act. In the vast emptiness of space, a cargo freighter named Stellar Horizon * drifted silently through the stars. The ship was not grand or sleek like the warships of old, but rather a sturdy, utilitarian vessel designed for long journeys across the galaxy. Its captain, Ethan Carter, stood on the bridge, staring out at the endless void through the large viewport. He was a tall man with sharp features and dark eyes that seemed to carry the weight of countless voyages. Beside him, Olivia, the ship's communications officer, sat at her station, her fingers dancing over the controls as she monitored incoming signals. The crew of the Stellar Horizon * was unusual by most standards. While humans had once dominated space travel, the centuries had shifted the balance. Now, Ethan and Olivia were among the few humans aboard, surrounded by beings from various alien species. There was Gruck, a hulking reptilian engineer whose deep growls often startled newcomers. Zara, a graceful insectoid navigator with shimmering wings. And Jorv, a squid-like pilot whose tentacles moved with surprising precision. Despite their differences, the crew worked well together, bound by necessity and mutual respect. It was during one of these routine patrols that Olivia noticed something odd. A faint signal flickered on her screen, barely audible beneath the static. At first, she thought it might be interference caused by nearby asteroids or solar winds, but as she adjusted the frequency, The signal grew clearer, a voice, weak and distorted, repeating the same phrase over and over. "Help. Please help." Ethan turned when he heard her gasp. "What is it?" he asked, his tone calm but curious. Olivia hesitated before answering. "Sir, I think it's a distress call." And she paused, glancing up at him. "It sounds human." The bridge fell silent. Human voices were rare in this part of the galaxy, where alien civilizations thrived and Earth itself felt like a distant memory. Many of the crew exchanged glances, unsure whether to believe what they were hearing. Some whispered among themselves, questioning if it could be a trap set by scavengers or pirates looking to lure unsuspecting ships into danger. Ethan rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Responding to unknown signals always carried risks, especially so far from any known trade routes. Yet ignoring a plea for help went against everything he believed in. After a moment he nodded. "Bring it up again," he said firmly. "Let's see if we can pinpoint its location." As Olivia worked, the rest of the crew prepared for the possibility of trouble. Weapons were checked, shields powered up, and escape protocols reviewed. Still, there was an undercurrent of unease. Even Gruck, who rarely showed emotion, grumbled about wasting time on what could be nothing more than a ghost signal. Finally, Olivia spoke. "Got it, Captain. The signal is coming from a derelict ship about half a parsec away. It's small, probably a scout vessel, but the energy signature suggests it's still intact." Ethan didn't hesitate. "Set a course," he ordered. Turning to the crew, he added, "Stay sharp. We don't know what we're walking into, but we're going to find out." The engines roared to life as the *Stellar Horizon* changed direction, heading toward the mysterious signal. As they approached the derelict ship, the tension aboard grew thicker. Through the viewport, they could now see the battered hull, scared by what looked like weapons fire. Pieces of debris floated around it, remnants of whatever battle or disaster had left it adrift. Ethan glanced at Olivia, noticing the worry etched on her face. "You okay?" he asked quietly. She nodded but didn't speak. Her hands hovered over the console, ready to send another transmission. Whatever awaited them inside that ship, she knew one thing for certain. Things were about to get much more complicated.